Dungeon Masters, did you know you can actually play D&D and never actually pick up a singular die ever? But that wouldn't be fun. But what are some ways that we can use dice and not use dice? What is the purpose of the dice in a TTRPG, and how can we use it for a greater storytelling experience? That's what I want to talk about. Randomness versus control. Those are the two things that when you're utilizing dice in a TTRPG that you have to consider. When you want randomness, dice are an amazing thing to actually put onto the table. Also, when you want to give your players control of a situation, dice do the same. So dice are both randomness and control in any given scenario. By allowing players to make a check, you're giving them control over their own fate. The DC, which you as the Dungeon Master provide, are the percentages of them doing that. Now, the thing with control is, I like to do a varying scale of spectrum of success in almost everything other than combat. Meaning that if we're doing an Arcana check because there's writing on the wall, and you roll a 15, you have a +3, which is an 18, but the DC is 20, I don't want to hinder you from that. You do know something. Now, what you know and the information I provide you is not going to be everything, but it's going to be enough to move the plot forward if that's plot specific, or enough to sow doubt in your mind. Now, at the same time, let's say you roll a 2 and you got a plea, so you get a 5. Well, this is something you would have known, and so I'll give you information, but I may give you wrong information as you remembered it incorrectly. Now, when I do this, I let everyone at my table know, because I play with some really hardcore role players, that you will always get information. You will always have some level of success, and sometimes failure takes multiple rolls, such as if you're climbing up a wall and you fail a climb check, one hand slips. So you make another climb check, right? And that DC is lower because now all you're doing is holding on. And then you succeed. So you make another climb check and you begin your progress back up. So remember, skill checks and dice as a whole are randomness when you want to introduce randomness by having random tables, and control to give your players control. You as the Dungeon Master use a DC to help instigate both of those factors. Keep that in mind when you're choosing to give someone a check, to allow them to roll. Do you want them to be in control, or do you need randomness? And if you want them to feel out of control, don't give them the option of rolling. Seems contradictory, but they have no control if they cannot roll, or you tell them no. Food for thought. Now, with dice rolling, we talk about how to impact the dice rolls themselves. And something I mentioned in my previous point was dynamic DCs. So a dynamic DCs means there's no longer a pass and a fail. The problem that a lot of people have with TTRPGs is I'm really smart. I know arcane magic. And when I roll, if I roll a 5 and I have a +5, that gives me a 10, but the DC was 15, so I fail my Arcana check. Well, kind of. The Barbarian would have failed his Arcana check, but the Wizard, well, you have information that makes that a dynamic DC. Now, sometimes I'll do this based upon class or reasoning. Sometimes I use dynamic DCs for everything. A dynamic DC means that there's a success point, right? The DC of 15. However, if you roll a 10, I'm still going to give you a series of information. If you roll a 5, I'm still going to give you some information. But also, if you roll a 20 or a 25 based upon your bonuses, you get more information. Now, a lot of people think this has a lot of prep to do with this. This just me as a dungeon master over years of figuring stuff out, have figured out how to scale that kind of that DC dynamically by providing more information than I would have, or still giving them enough to move the plot forward, but providing a little bit less or skipping out on something that would be important. They still know how to open the door, but they don't know that on the other side of that door is a portal, right? Now, that would have told them, that arcane description, that when they open the door, they're going to open that portal. But in this case, they're going to open the door. The portal's going to show up. Now, what happens when something walks through? Or what's on the other side of that portal? That they don't know. So food for thought when using dynamic DCs. Another way to use dice when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons is to roll for random things. This is one that depends on your table. So I'm not going to say this is good advice. I'm not going to say this is bad advice. But I like to say, hey, go ahead and give me a perception check. There is no perception check. It's theater of the mind. I like to do this with my players because it keeps them thinking. At the same time, people think this is evil, and I don't do this on all tables. There's a lot of tables where I have, which is not my veteran players or people that know me as a dungeon master, but when you get to know me as a dungeon master, you get the feeling of what I'm trying to accomplish. That interaction that you and I have affects the gameplay. It affects you as a player playing your characters, which affects our role-playing experience. So therefore, When I want you to feel nervous as a character, I will start having you roll things. I want that nervousness to come from you as a player and into your character. I use those random rolls to enhance whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish as a storytelling device. I don't use them to mess with my players. I'm using them to instill something, right? If I need you to feel uneasy and we're in a cave, everyone roll perception checks, okay? Thank you very much. Well, do we see anything? I got all your checks. We're good to go. What did we miss, right? Okay, everyone roll perception checks. What is going on? I use that to enhance the storytelling. I do not use random rolls to mess with my players. I've said it twice now. I want that to come across. Using rolls, using dice rolls can be done when it doesn't have to actually be to the players. It can be used as a theatrical device to create a certain tense. If you want to bring a sentence of ease to someone, you can do the same thing. Even though there's nothing in the rule. Everyone roll for perception, okay? You got a 10, everyone rolls, so you got, everyone rolls low, you're kind of screwed. But everyone roll for perception with advantage. Oh, we got a 20. You are feeling comfortable in this room. It's completely clear. It's the first time that you've not seen any evidence of monsters, right? What I'm doing is I'm not just telling them, I'm giving them the illusion of control by having them roll a dice and then making sure that I'm reinforcing that because I want them to feel at ease in this room. Dice can be used as much as for a storytelling device as an actual rule set. So keep it in mind. Use it sparingly, and trust me, you'll get a lot of players that will be mad at you if you're not careful with this one. So what do you think of the comments? When it comes to dice rolling, fudging or not to fudge, a divisive issue. So you will get some people that say, I lay it down and the dice are God, and that's what happens. I get some people like myself that fudge dice rolls all the time. Fudging dice rolls, in my opinion, should do one thing and one thing alone: enhance the story. I will fudge dice rolls if something is happening and the story is not progressing in an enjoyable way. And enjoyable doesn't mean not a TPK or a player death, because that's part of the story. It means when the players feel out of control, when I've rolled crit after crit after crit after crit, and then I roll again, I'm like, I can't roll another crit. I can't hit these guys again. And so all of a sudden, the big bad monster misses, right? And they're like, yes, he finally missed. It enhances the story. So if you're going to fudge dice rolls, make sure that it enhances the story. And this is something that you will learn to do as a dungeon master. If you believe soul-heartedly that you are never going to fudge a dice roll, so be it. I have more power to you and I wish you the best. But as a dungeon master, if you're going to fudge, make sure it counts and make sure it enhances the story. The other way you can use dice is by tipping the balance. When a fight is going one way or another way, dice can sometimes tip that scale. By utilizing dice rolls or enhancing or taking back or adding advantage or doubling damage, you can make people feel bigger, better, and badder on a regular basis by utilizing the dice rolls to enhance the game. Remember, guys, when dice are in effect, you can use them for randomness, you can use them for control, you can use them for fudging rolls, not fudging rolls. The dice are a tool in your arsenal to help you tell better stories. If you're fighting against the dice, you're losing the battle. You're using them wrong. The dice are your tool. The dice enhance things to make things better. Keep that in mind. And as always, like and subscribe and share and comment and tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, how you would use these rules differently. And as always, we will see you next time.